Do you want to improve your photography instantly? Whether you're shooting on a smartphone or a fancy DSLR, these 10 beginner mistakes are holding you back from capturing jaw-dropping photos, and trust me, the fixes are easier than you think. Stick around to the end because mistake number 10 is something even pros struggle with, and if you fix it, your photos will instantly improve. Mistake 1. Using auto mode. Mistake number 1. Relying on auto mode. Auto is convenient, but it limits your creative control over exposure, focus, and lighting. Here's the fixes. 1. Aperture priority mode. Switch to aperture priority to control your aperture while your camera adjusts the rest. Use a lower aperture like f/1.8 for portraits to get that nice background blur. 2. Shutter priority mode. For fast-moving subjects or low light, control your shutter speed to freeze motion. 3. Manual mode. Experiment with full manual to master your camera settings and elevate your photos. Mistake 2. Poor composition. Bad composition can ruin even the best shot. The biggest mistake? Not using the rule of thirds. Here's the fixes you need to know. 1. Enable grid lines. Turn on grid lines in your camera and place your subject along these lines or intersections. 2. Use leading lines. Find natural or architectural lines that guide the viewer's eye toward your subject. 3. Symmetry. For specific shots, play with symmetry to create balanced images. Mistake 3. Shooting in low light without a tripod. Blurry photos in low light? It's probably because you're shooting without a tripod. Now here's the fix. 1. Use a tripod or stable surface. If you don't have a tripod, find a steady surface to rest your camera. 2. Boost ISO. Increase your ISO sensitivity for better exposure, but avoid going too high to reduce grain. 3. Shutter speed. Use a faster shutter speed to prevent motion blur. Mistake 4. Overexposing your shots. Overexposure washes out details and colors. Too much light can kill your shot. Now here's the fix. 1. Exposure compensation. Dial down the exposure compensation using your camera's plus/ button. 2. Check histogram. Check the histogram to ensure your highlights aren't blown out. 3. Shoot in RAW. RAW files retain more data, making it easier to recover overexposed areas during editing. Mistake 5. Ignoring the background. Your subject can easily get lost in a busy background. Now here's the fix. 1. Use a wider aperture. Switch to a wider aperture, f/1.8, to blur out the distracting background. 2. Change angle. Move around your subject to find a cleaner, less cluttered background. 3. Look for contrast. Make sure your subject stands out from the background by placing them against contrasting colors. Mistake 6. Not using RAW format. Shooting in JPEG limits your ability to edit. RAW is the way to go for serious photographers. Now here's the fix. 1. Switch to RAW. Go into your camera's settings and change the image quality to RAW for maximum editing flexibility. 2. Editing in Lightroom or Photoshop. RAW gives you more control over exposure, white balance, and details in both shadows and highlights. 3. Use dynamic range. RAW lets you bring out more detail in areas that would otherwise be lost in highlights or shadows. Mistake 7. Wrong focus point. A blurry subject with a sharp background is usually caused by the wrong focus point. Here's the fix. 1. Manually select focus. Move your camera's focus point manually to where you want the subject to be sharp. 2. Use focus peaking. Turn on focus peaking to highlight the in-focus areas. 3. Single point focus. For portraits or close-ups, use single point autofocus to ensure the subject's eyes are sharp. Mistake 8. Not adjusting white balance. White balance controls the color temperature. If it's off, your photo can look too warm or too cold. Here's the fix. 1. Manual white balance. Set your white balance manually based on your environment, or use presets like daylight or tungsten. 2. Use RAW for flexibility. RAW files let you adjust white balance after the shot, making it easier to fix in editing. Mistake 9, shooting without a plan. Going into a shoot without a plan leads to inconsistent photos and missed opportunities. Here's the fix. 1. Have a shot list. Before you start, make a list of shots you want to capture. 2. Visualize the end result. Think about the story you want your photos to tell and how each shot contributes to that vision. Mistake 10. Over-editing your photos, 7:30 to 8:30. Too much editing, whether it's saturation, sharpening, or filters, can make your photos look fake. Here's the fix. 1. Subtle edits. Use edits sparingly. Adjust exposure, contrast, and color gently to enhance, not overpower, your images. 2. Focus on natural look. Less is more. Aim to keep your photos looking realistic. Avoid these 10 mistakes, and your photography will improve in no time. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, subscribe for more tips, and comment if you've made any of these mistakes yourself.